clear of the closing doors, please.
Marketplace is coming up next. Tonight on the show, inflation remains top of mind for voters, and it's also a top issue for Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen.
Inflation has come down substantially. It's not yet where it needs to be, and it has been a slightly bumpy path, but I think the fundamentals are still favorable.
A conversation on the fundamentals and more with the Treasury Secretary. That's coming up next on Marketplace.
Support for WNYC comes from City Harvest, who are on the road every day rescuing 77 million pounds of nutritious food a year for New Yorkers in need, transforming surplus food into sustenance and sustainability. That's how they feed good. More at cityharvest.org.
If you believe democracy requires a free press, your station is WNYC, 93.9 FM and AM 820, NPR News and the New York Conversation.
Marketplace is supported by Twilio Segment. Segment helps every team access good data that's real-time, clean, and accurate. The result is relevant customer experiences that drive real revenue. Segment.com.
The state of the American consumer, Sino-American relations, and democracy, and the state of this economy, all as Janet Yellen sees them from American Public Media. This is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Certified Financial Planner Professionals. Learn more about CFP professionals at letsmakeaplan.org.
In Washington, D.C., today I'm Kai Ryssdal. It is Thursday, the 9th of May. Good as always to have you along, everybody. The way it works when you've got an interview with the Treasury Secretary is that you show your ID to the uniformed Secret Service agent standing at the gate on Pennsylvania Avenue, right outside the White House and the Treasury Department building. Then you give your ID to the uniformed Secret Service agent inside the guardhouse on Pennsylvania Avenue. Then you get inside the building and you give your ID to the uniformed Secret Service agent at the guard desk. A quick pass through the metal detector, up a flight of stairs, and down a long tiled corridor into a kind of underwhelming conference room, really. You wait for a couple of minutes, and then you're on. Madam Secretary, welcome to the program. Good to have you back.
Thanks for the invitation.
I want to start with inflation, just as a quickie, even though technically not your job. I get that. You said a number of months ago, this is it. We've had the soft landing. And given the way inflation has been bumpy, to quote Chair Powell, would you like a do-over on that one?
Well, look, I think the economy is doing well. We have a strong pace of job creation. Growth is running around 3% over the last year, and inflation has come down substantially. It's not yet where it needs to be, and it has been a slightly bumpy path, but I think the fundamentals are still favorable. But look, all that said, many Americans are suffering from a cost of living that is posing challenges to them. Rent, food, other prices are high, and Americans feel challenged to make ends meet. So President Biden's top priority is doing everything he can to get the cost of living down.
When you see polls, though, that show the president not getting credit for economic growth, and in point of fact, credit largely going to his presumed opponent, do you look at it and say, what do we have to do to get a break?
Well, I think we have to explain to the American people what we have done to create a bright future for them. And the pandemic was a serious challenge for all Americans. And we have a lot of challenges coming out of that. But if you compare the United States with other developed economies, we are doing better. Inflation's come down more. Growth is stronger. The job market is doing better. And President Biden has been focused since day one, not only on recovering from the pandemic, but on investing in America in ways that would create good jobs including for people who don't have a college education and in parts of the country that have really lacked opportunity. And there has been a trifecta of legislation passed, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act, the CHIPS and Science Act, and the Inflation Reduction Act, which is a monumentally important set of clean energy incentives. And with these investments is coming tremendous opportunities for Americans that will boost their living standards.
Let's talk about America and the global economy for a second. China specifically, which is the last time you and I spoke in Beijing. You're just back a number of weeks ago from another trip there. You said the first time you went, what you had to do was set a floor under the relationship. And we talked about that at the time, and now you're building on that. Are you satisfied that the relationship is stable?
I think it's decidedly improved over the last year. I've had 3 very substantial engagements with my counterpart, Vice Premier He Lifeng. I've spent a great deal of time with him, and we've had very deep and detailed discussions of the issues that we have with one another, what our priorities are, and also importantly, our relationship goes beyond just the Vice Premier and myself. We've deepened the relationship throughout our governments. We've formed 2 working groups. They've met 4 times, and they're really digging in and discussing issues in ways that are including around our concerns, one of which is Chinese overcapacity in advanced manufacturing, exchanging papers, analyzing data, and we're working also on joint things, especially when it comes to financial stability that will be good for the entire globe.
Let me ask you about one of the focuses of that trip, which is, as you mentioned, overcapacity in advanced products, electric vehicles, batteries, all of those things. Is it possible we're just being outcompeted by the Chinese in those fields?
Well, we don't think the playing field is level. And we think China is massively subsidizing investment in a set of industries that they have targeted as critical to their growth prospects.
Subsidizing more than we are with our investments in the CHIPS Act and the infrastructure law and all that?
Yes, I think
we're pouring billions. You are pouring billions in.
Well, we have targeted a few industries, particularly clean energy, electric vehicles, batteries, renewables, where we're not trying to dominate the globe and be the only country in the world that supplies these goods. But we do think it's critical for our national security, for the sake of supply chain resilience, and to create good manufacturing jobs where people can get ahead, to have a presence in these industries. And what we don't want to see is massive Chinese subsidies to firms with huge overcapacity that will just drive our firms out of business. I think what's happened in China is that China has a macroeconomic situation where an unusually low fraction of their output, their economy's output, is devoted to consumer spending. And they have a savings rate that's the highest, among the highest in the world, around 45%. They used to channel that savings into infrastructure, then into real estate and property development.
Which has been problematic.
And that sector has problems. And what to do with all of those funds? Well, their decision is, let's channel those funds that we don't need to put into property and infrastructure into advanced manufacturing. And China has built enough capacity, for example, in solar panels to supply twice the total global demand. So, we suffered in the late 1990s and early 2000s, what's called a China shock,
Sure.
in which really Chinese dumping and overcapacity caused layoffs of many American workers in many parts of the country. And we don't want to see that happen again.
I'm going to oversimplify here, but bear with me. Your message to the Chinese, at least as reported publicly, has been, we want to engage. We do not want to decouple. You've been very clear about that. But you've also said, when it comes to national security, fundamentally all bets are off. Do you think they hear you when you say that?
They do. I think they're worried that when we say national security, that's a very broad concept and that we're using national security to impose restrictions with the idea of harming their economic progress.
Yeah.
And my job is to explain to them that we are trying to carefully target restrictions to make sure that they really address national security concerns and are not harming their economy broadly, and to open up a channel by which we listen to their concerns if they think that our restrictions are too broad.
More from the 78th Secretary of the Treasury of these United States about American democracy and this economy coming up after the fold. Wall Street on this Thursday. Traders were in a pretty good mood, actually. A little bit of softness in the labor market is the reason why. Should you be curious? First-time claims for unemployment benefits were up just a hair, and that might, emphasis on might, make the Fed more inclined to cut interest rates. Maybe. We'll have the details when we do the numbers. All right, let's do the numbers. Dow Industrial's up 331 today, more than 0.8%, 39,387. The Nasdaq added 43 points, a little over 0.25%, finished at 16,346. The S&P 500 picked up 26 points, about 0.5%, finished at 52.14. A place and a palace of teenage rock and roll dreams is filed for bankruptcy. Musical instrument retailer Sam Ash has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy in a federal court in New Jersey. The family-owned company is closing its 42 remaining brick-and-mortar stores. It was the pandemic, says the company, according to court documents. One of Sam Ash's biggest unpaid debts in that filing is to Yamaha, which is in turn one of the few musical instrument manufacturers that is publicly traded. Its shares picked up 9 3/10% today after a strong quarterly report. Revenue up, profit forecast looking rosy. A sweet, sweet quarter for Cheesecake Factory. Ticker symbol? Come on, this one's too easy. Come on. Cake. Revenues beat analyst estimates and shares rose 6 2/10% today. Same story for Krispy Kreme. Ticker symbol, this one's a little trickier. D-Nut. But it managed to pocket just 1 8/10%. The bonds rose, yield on the 10-year T-note, 4.45%. You're listening to Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Viking, dedicated to bringing travelers to the heart of each destination with small ship, river, ocean, and expedition voyages, offering cultural enrichment and immersive experiences. Discover more at Viking.com. And by Progressive Insurance. Progressive is currently looking for individuals in a variety of career fields who are interested in building a career and joining an inclusive and unique culture. More information, including application, at progressive.com/careers. And by Bitwarden, the password manager with autofill to streamline login where there are too many passwords to remember. Bitwarden enables secure access across all accounts and across all devices. Available to download at bitwarden.com.
WNYC is supported by Optimum Business, offering business fiber with speeds up to 8 gig. More information is available at 855-2-OPTIMUM or at optimum.com/business.
On the next Brian Lehrer Show, the cicadas are coming. The cicadas are coming. We'll talk about what it means around here with the confluence of cicadas who emerge every 13 years and every 17 years, both coming out at the same time. Also for Mother's Day, cartoonist Linda Fink with her new book for new moms called How to Baby. The Brian Lehrer Show, weekdays at 10 a.m. on WNYC.
You're listening to Marketplace on WNYC. In the 7 o'clock hour of All Things Considered, there's a fund that all commercial airlines pay into for things like safety inspections. But there's a growing user of FAA resources that doesn't pay into that fund. Commercial space companies. That and more at 7.
This is Marketplace. I'm Kai Ryssdal. We talked, Secretary Yellen and I did, for 15 or so minutes today. 8-ish of it you already heard. Big picture economic issues, American consumers, the China relationship. And then I made a turn. Here you go.
New subject. You gave a speech last Friday in Arizona in which you, by your own words, sort of went where Treasury secretaries don't usually go. And you started talking about the importance of democracy to the American economy and democratic institutions to the importance of this economy, among them rule of law, regulation, the right of appeal, all of those things. Do you believe that the rule of law is under threat in this country right now, and what will that mean for this economy?
Well, we have seen attacks on institutions, American institutions, independent institutions like the Federal Reserve. And of course, January 6th was a huge attack on American democracy and something that was frightening. So I think we do have to worry about the state of American democracy. And when we look around the world, we see similar threats in a number of countries, and some questioning of whether or not democracies can actually deliver and address the challenges that people face.
You did what economists do in that speech, and you gave some data and some case studies, and it was, I recommend people read it or go listen to it on the stream. I want to know why you decided it was important to give that speech now.
Well, President Biden has also talked about the importance
not the president, ma'am, you, right? These are words coming out of your mouth.
Oh, sure. Well, from my standpoint, I think it's important for Americans to understand how critical democracy is to economic performance. Of course, democracy is important in and of itself, but I thought what I can add is to elucidate the relevance of democracy to good economic performance and to fight back against the idea that democracies just aren't an efficient way to help people get ahead. And you sometimes hear this in countries like China that say, well, we have an authoritarian government. We decide to do something and we can move quickly, and look how slow it is for sometimes democracies to move. But the research suggests that democracy is actually critical to high living standards. On average, other things equal, income is 20% higher in democracies, and there are very good reasons, and it's important for Americans to understand that.
Did you clear that speech with the White House?
I always share remarks I'm going to give with my colleagues in the administration.
When we were in China and you were, you got the red carpet treatment, you came down the stairs and ambassadors and dignitaries were there to welcome you, and I asked you if you were a diplomat now and what you thought of that. And it was an interesting answer. I guess the corollary question now is, it's not really a question. You're kind of a politician now.
Well, I want to be clear. My what I say and do is governed by the Hatch Act. I'm not allowed to get into electoral politics.
Absolutely.
But it is really important for me to explain what President Biden's economic strategy is and how we see that as helping Americans prosper over time. And there are a lot of different dimensions to that. And one of them, I believe, is to explain why the policies we're putting into place are the appropriate ones to address a lot of long-standing structural issues. Look, we've seen in this country over decades that the typical American who does not have a 4-year college degree has barely seen any increase in their real or inflation-adjusted wages really in 40 or 50 years. And there's been deindustrialization through many parts of the country that have reduced job opportunities. And what do we see? We see even rising death rates, deaths of despair in parts of the country where jobs have dried up. And Americans feel that that's an economy that's not working for them. And President Biden, the Biden-Harris administration, is focused on changing that and developed a strategy that first succeeded in generating a rapid recovery from the pandemic and is now investing for the medium and longer run.
We were talking on the way over here, Nancy, my producer, and I, and we realized that depending on how this election goes, this might be the last chance we have to sit down with you. So I'm going to ask you the legacy question, and it goes like this. I did an event with Chair Powell in San Francisco 6 weeks ago. We were at the San Francisco Fed, which you ran for a long time, and in point of fact, we were in the Janet Yellen Conference Center at the San Francisco Fed. And so I used that as well, there you go, and it's lovely. I recommend you swing by and take a visit. I asked Chair Powell what his legacy was based on, your legacy in the San Francisco Fed being that conference room. But bigger picture, what's the first line of your New York Times obit?
That I tried to work with President Biden and in other ways throughout my life to create economic conditions that make Americans feel they're getting ahead and enjoying good lives, that they have opportunity and that they're able to realize their dreams. And we can do that by, earlier in my career, through a monetary policy that is geared toward keeping the economy operating near full employment with stable prices. And in this phase, working with President Biden to put in place fiscal policies that create important job opportunities for people, regardless of whether they have a college education, that give them the training and create the opportunities they need to succeed and feel they're getting ahead and creating good and better lives for their children.
Madam Secretary, thanks for your time, man.
Thank you very much, Kai.
As you heard from Secretary Yellen, the U.S.-China economic relationship is complicated. But you get away from the high-level controversies down to the doing business nuts and bolts, and it all comes down to a person having a good idea that the market likes. True, most of the time. Not true for a guy who came up with one of the hottest toys in all of China last summer. Marketplace's Jennifer Peck has that one.
In the central Chinese city of Wuhan, college student Zhou Wenhao studies marine engineering by day. By night, he's tinkering with 3D printers. 2 years ago, he designed a mini toy switchblade and called it a carrot knife because the plastic blade is orange. He films it and posts it on the video platform Bilibili.
In the first 2 weeks, the video didn't get much traction. Then it got hundreds of thousands of views, and I sold a couple hundred carrot knives.
Orders started to fizzle. Zhou Wenhao moved on to other designs. And last summer, at the urging of a friend, he uploaded the carrot knife video again. this time on another platform, TikTok's Chinese sister site, Douyin.
It got 5 million views. Then some manufacturers started hyping the toy online.
Among them, manufacturer and seller Yu Pinghai. He says the carrot knife was a good idea, so he wanted to copy it. He hesitated at first because the design was pretty simple.
If the technical barrier is very low, there would be lots of other imitators, and the price would go down till there would be no profits. I didn't want to join the price war, so I normally wouldn't do it.
But he didn't have any other product on hand, so he took the carrot knife design.
It was just a coincidence and luck that I became one of the first to manufacture the carrot knife, and I sold a lot.
He did so because he's some 400 miles east of Wuhan in Yiwu City. Factories there are known for producing all things small. Again, inventor Zhou Wenhao.
When the carrot knife went viral, manufacturers and sellers in Yiwu didn't care about copyright.
A lot of them just skimmed his design. This didn't bother him at first because he was busy with orders for another one of his products.
I had no time for new orders. Besides, I thought the carrot knife was an old product and would not last long on the market.
He was very wrong. News reports say carrot knives were all the rage last summer among elementary students, a customer base he didn't think to target, because his carrot knives retail at $4, whereas ones from Yiwu, less than $1.50 each.
From making plastic molds, manufacturing, and logistics, it's all concentrated in one area. That's why Yiwu's production cost is so cheap.
These industrial clusters are the reason you have a lot of toys selling for cheap on Amazon. Chinese factories make money by selling a lot and moving quickly. Again, toy manufacturer Yu Pinghai.
In the Yiwu business circle, information spreads fast. Production of the carrot knife lasted 2 to 3 months.
But by last fall, news reports were questioning the safety of carrot knives, and sales collapsed. Inventor Zhou Wenhao estimates between 10 and 100 million carrot knives were sold. Of those, he made maybe 500.
I earned less than $900 from the carrot knife.
He did try to work with the factory, but one of the partners ran away with all the money. Over a meal of braised fish, he says a patent would not have helped him in time.
In the internet era, things can be easily amplified, but things that come fast can go just as fast.
He says the best way to earn money is to control the manufacturing and sales process yourself, and somehow not get swallowed up by China's manufacturing machine. In Wuhan, I'm Jennifer Pack for Marketplace.
If you need, and I know you do, an early start to your business day, all the economic news you need to know comes to you from David Brancaccio and the gang at the Marketplace Morning Report. Check it out.
Marketplace is supported by Betterment, the automated investing platform that helps make it easy to be invested for the long term. Learn more at Betterment.com. Investing involves risk.
This final note on the way out today, the last word of the day from Secretary Yellen.
One more China question. You get all kinds of social media love for your food choices when you go to China. Your chopstick skills are apparently impeccable. What do you?
I'm glad to hear that.
What do you make of that?
I think the Chinese are happy to see a person who appreciates Chinese culture and is a regular person that they can identify with.
Is that your regular person?
Yeah, I think so.
John Buckley, John Gordon, Noya Carr, Diantha Parker, Amanda Peter, and Stephanie Seek are all regular people as well. They're the Marketplace editing staff. Amir Bibawe, also a regular person, is the managing editor. I'm Kai Risdal. We will see you tomorrow, everybody. This is APM.